Good morning. Happy Australia Day. No, it's past Australia Day.
Morning, John. Very exciting day of sport yesterday. I spent a lot of time on the box. Shock wins for the West Indies and England in the cricket. And two stars on the rise in world sport, Yannick Sinner and Shamar Joseph.
I went to the basketball. And watched the Kings beat Melbourne. And then I watched the first three sets of Sinner and Medvedev and then fell asleep actually while watching it.
I actually stayed. I watched the whole day's cricket, Australia West Indies yesterday. Just an extraordinary result. I watched all of the men's final and I was getting scores of England v India as well. So plenty going on yesterday, John. No shortage of sport, that's for sure.
Yeah, for sure. You want to go over the tennis? So this will be the last time we talk about tennis until something interesting happens.
Yeah, tennis is leading today, and then it does a disappearing act from our rundown
until
pretty
Nick
much.
Kyrgios gives us some other news.
Until there's the sporadic Nick Kyrgios updates that there'll be, and then we'll get into it again when the next major's on, John.
When is the next major?
French Open in late May, early June.
So we can go over Sinner versus Medvedev.
Yes.
So in the end, Sinner became the first Italian. Was it the first Italian male to win a? No.
Second Italian man to win a slam in the Open era. Joins Adriano Panatta, who won the French Open in 1976. It's his first Grand Slam title, John, and what a way to do it. Down 2-0 against Daniil Medvedev. Medvedev was all over him in those first two sets, John. Medvedev's accuracy is just unbelievable. He gets the ball deep consistently, just lands it on a 20-cent piece. He's like the Glenn McGrath of tennis, able to just land the ball on a 20-cent piece. But then there was just a shift. Sinner just hung in there in the third set, made sure he held his own serves, and then he just pounced there at the end of that third set to take the third set, and then there was no looking back. He took the momentum, and momentum is very important in sport, and came back from 2-0 down. So this is becoming a problem for Medvedev, John. In 2022, a couple of years ago, led Rafael Nadal 2-0 in the Australian Open final. So he's now lost 2 Australian Open finals, having led 2-0. That'd be a real worry for him. And he's now lost 3 Australian Open finals, John. Also lost the final in 2021 as well. So this is a worry for Medvedev. He's just got that one major to his name, that US Open in 2021. He's starting to turn into a bit of an Andy Murray, losing Grand Slam finals, John.
Well, that third set, actually, I think Jim Courier was talking about it while I was watching, and I noticed that it's like it was Medvedev's second serve. Every time he faulted, and he faulted a lot in his first serve. Like his first serve was just failing him.
Yeah, in the last 3 sets, which Sinner won all of them, his first serve was a real problem.
Yeah, and it was it collapsed on his first serve, and his second serve. There's they do a fault and then they take it safe for the second one. That was one of the things I always really liked about Jelena Dokic. She just didn't give a crap. She'd go, first serve I screwed it up. Second serve, I'm going just as hard, bro. Yeah. But his second serves are so vastly different to his first serve. Like there's a lot of power behind his first serve. He's obviously sending it as hard as he can, and his second serve after that is really, really safe. Sinner was able to return that. It's like, the whole idea of tennis is you're serving so you're in control. But Medvedev is giving control to his opponent in that second serve. And because he was faulting a lot on the first serve, Sinner was able to take those break points really easily.
And I think that's, I'll just point out, John, I've never been a professional tennis player, but
that means your opinion doesn't count, get out.
Yeah. my other day job other than this, John, is I work as a tennis coach. And one thing I've sort of noticed in a lot of players that I've sort of looked at over the years is not enough of them are willing to take that gamble on the second serve and go after it. especially if you're playing against someone like a Novak Djokovic. If I was coaching someone against Novak Djokovic, I'd tell them just go for both serves, because he's going to make mincemeat of your second serve if you paddle your second serve anyway. So you may as well roll the dice and take that risk on the second serve. But yeah, too often, you're right, too often players just won't have a go at the second serve. And there are times when it's worth having a go at it. If you're up 40-love in a game, you may as well have a crack at it. If you double fault, well, it's 40-15 and you're on serve, you're still highly likely to hold serve in that game. And it's not always about that point as well. It's also about getting it in your opponent's head that you're unpredictable. You want them thinking that as well. You don't want them thinking that you're predictable. And in those last few sets last night, Medvedev became predictable and Sinner pounced.
Yeah, his second serve was basically a carbon copy every single time, to the exact same point every single time. Almost exactly the same speed every single time he was on second serve. So Sinner just knew 100%. Oh, he's faltered. Sweet. You know,
I think it got in Medvedev's head. He took that 2-sets-to-love lead, and I think he thought about it. I think he had too much time to think about it. He's the first player in tennis history to lose 2 Grand Slam finals. He led 2-sets-to-love.
That's a sucky.
So that's a really damning statistic against Medvedev. So Sinner becomes the youngest winner of the Australian Open since Novak Djokovic in 2008. It was the first final played without a member of the Big Three since 2005, John.
Wow. When
Leighton Hewitt took on Marat Safin and unfortunately went down. Dominic Thiem was the only other player to win his first slam from 2 sets down. He did that at the US Open in 2020. Interestingly, there was an Aussie flavour to this match, John. Leighton Hewitt was helping Sinner in the warm-up before the match. He was warming up with Yannick Sinner. And John Millman had a hit with Medvedev as well. So there you go.
That's well
done to Yannick Sinner, John. 2 sets to love down, came back and won the Australian Open final.
Man, he actually kind of looked gone. You know,
he did. You really did not feel like, I know it sounds like an obvious thing to say, but just watching it at 2 sets to love, you thought this will be done in straight sets.
Yeah.
Medvedev's got him tonight, but Medvedev Medvedev in the first 2 sets was a completely different player to Medvedev in the last 3. And yeah, you are starting to wonder if this is an issue, this issue of, again, 2 major finals. As I said, Rafael Nadal in 2022 at the Australian Open. 2 sets to love up, got beaten. Same last night. 2 sets to love up, got beaten.
Yeah, it's okay when you get beaten by Rafael Nadal 2 sets.
Yeah, you can live with that. It's Rafael Nadal.
But then when it's
to do it again,
I mean, Sinner is a really, really good player, but then for Medvedev, what were they ranked, like 3 and 4 or something? Yeah, so Medvedev, when he's that far on top, and then to do it again against someone who is not one of those big threes, who is a guy coming up, that's going to eat at him for the rest of his life. You know, that could really be the Ben Hunt dropping the ball in the grand final kind of thing that he might never win another slam again unless he gets through that. Because it is it's a mental thing.
Yeah, 3 Australian Open finals lost now. 2021, 2022, 2024. And that might segue us into, I think we should look at Sinner's win over Djokovic in the semi-final.
I watched all of that.
Yeah, because it was extraordinary. We won't worry about the other semis, obviously. But, John, I did think that would be a factor for Sinner. I thought this idea of playing your grand final a match early, I thought there'd be a bit of a mental letdown for Sinner, and I think it was a factor definitely in the first 2 sets, playing his grand final against Djokovic a match early. There was going to be some mental hangover going into the final against Medvedev, and I thought, well, Medvedev's not the guy you want to be playing against if you've got some sort of a mental hangover. And it was evident in those first 2 sets against Medvedev. But then, Sinner managed to overcome it and come back. But, that match against Djokovic, John, so...
It was a really good match.
It was, So Djokovic had a 33-match winning streak at the Australian Open, so Sinner brought that to the end. He was going for his 11th Australian Open title, didn't get it, John, even though he was a very short-priced favourite, and was going for his 25th major trophy. So... Djokovic made 54 unforced errors to 28 by Sinner. That's nearly twice as many, John. That's an extraordinary statistic. Djokovic hadn't lost a match at the Australian Open since 2018, John. It was 2,195 days since he last lost a match at the Australian Open. We should point out that he didn't compete in 2022 because he got deported, but that was... He claimed the 4 titles in the other 4 years, 2019, 2021 and 23. Just some extraordinary numbers. And also, John, another stat for you. So Djokovic's loss at Wimbledon last year, that was his first setback at Wimbledon since 2017. His first loss at Wimbledon since 2017, and that was also a span of 2,195 days.
Wow.
The exact same number of days. And in the similar circumstances, he'd won 4 championships in a row there, and no one competed in 2020 because of the pandemic. There was no tournament. So there you go, just some extraordinary numbers from Djokovic's semi-final loss to Sinner. One thing I noticed... just sort of watching it, John, I was looking at it going, what's Sinner doing that's really upsetting Djokovic here? And I think what he did was he came in a bit. He was right up on the baseline. I think a problem that Nadal's had against Djokovic at the Australian Open is he stood too far back, too far behind the baseline. And on the clay courts at the French Open, obviously he gets away with it because it's a slower surface.
Yeah.
He's got more time to get to the ball. But on that faster surface of the Australian Open, was certainly faster than the French Open, Nadal doesn't have the same time, and Djokovic is able to pick him off when he's standing so far back. But Sinner took that out of play because he came right up on the baseline and he took so much time away from Djokovic. He was going for his shots and they were all going in. He was having a good day. Now, it's one thing to have a plan to do that. It's another thing to actually be able to execute it against Djokovic at the Australian Open. So really well done to Sinner, especially the wins in the semi-final and the final.
The frustration on Djokovic's face and in his behaviour was really evident. During the match, a lot of people were commenting that Djokovic looked like he didn't want to be there, and I kind of it seemed to me like an excuse that people were making for Djokovic losing, as opposed to... I think Sinner was frustrating Djokovic and closing him out and making it I don't want to be here because I'm in a really... I'm out of my comfort zone here. Yeah. I don't like this. I just don't want to be here. It wasn't that he didn't want to be playing. It was that he didn't want to be in that situation, and he just couldn't... As the match wore on, even he won the 3rd set, right?
Djokovic,
even in that...
the tiebreaker,
even in that, he still looked like, this is so bad. I don't know what to do.
That was really the only time where you had slight question marks over whether Sinner would get the job done. The rest of the match, you thought, this is Sinner's day.
Absolutely.
That was the only time where you went, I'm not sure here, but Sinner got it done. Well done to him, John. I guess that the bigger question now for Djokovic is this just a blip on the radar, or is it the start of, the younger generation, your Sinners and these sorts of players, overtaking him? I guess we can't get too carried away. He still won 3 majors last year and made the final of the other one. Alcaraz, the only one to beat him in majors last year, winning that Wimbledon final. But we are starting to see what we haven't seen before, and that's players beating Djokovic in majors. Alcaraz doing it last year at Wimbledon, Sinner doing it this year at the Australian Open. We hadn't seen any evidence of that before, so I think Djokovic has got more majors in him for sure. But this younger generation of Alcaraz, Sinner are starting to, be taken notice of for sure.
Yeah,
with
I think
these wins
so.
over him in majors.
I think Djokovic continues because he wants that one last thing he needs to do, and that's get that calendar year Grand Slam.
Yeah, well, that's going to be harder for him
can't do
now.
it this
He can't
year.
do it this year.
He has to wait till next year, and
he'll be a year older. He'll be 37.
And I think like that's his only that's the last thing he needs to do. Actually, there's nothing else that guy can do in tennis.
To be honest, I think this is the thing, John. Like Federer's gone now, so he doesn't have to worry about Federer overtaking him. Nadal's been out for so long now and just come back, and he's got injured again in Brisbane.
Nadal's not going to win four more.
That's the thing. Nadal's not going to overtake him now.
Oh, no, he's 22. He's not going to win 3 more.
No, he's not. And Djokovic not win anymore.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. So there's really... I think Djokovic, he'll keep going until he feels like he can't win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it's just that one thing that he needs. And, he is motivated by breaking records. And he'll go around again next year just because of that. But you will, I think it is. We are starting to see those guys come through that... Djokovic is obviously old.
I think we just need to look at reserve judgment on where Djokovic sits. I think we need to wait till the end.
Remember, he did have a dip a few years ago as well when he went full weird diet.
2 years without winning a major.
He went full weird diet and I think no coach, and
he did have a dip. Yeah,
kind of went off his nut, and he always comes back. So I think we'll. Yeah, like you say, reserve judgment till the end of the year and see where he is. If he wins no Grand Slams in the year...
That's when you could start to say, there's a changing of the guard here, but you got to reserve judgment on it. Till the end of the year. I still think, John, with the huge question marks over Nadal, obviously, and him being out for so long, at this point, Djokovic would have to go into the French Open as the favourite.
Yeah, absolutely.
He'd still go to Wimbledon as the favourite at this point. The US Open's a bit further away, so we're probably not much point talking about that. But certainly at this point, for the French Open and Wimbledon, Djokovic is the favourite.
If you were putting money on any major right now, you would just have Djokovic as the favourite. It doesn't matter how far away it is or anything. Even next year, you would have him as the favourite. As we go through this year, that may change. But right at this point in time, even though he lost, I'd still say he's the favourite to win them all this year and a favourite to win them all next year. Because he's Djokovic.
We'll see how he goes this year. We'll reserve judgment, but certainly the next couple of majors, he's going to be hard to beat. I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon.
That's in the other final, the women's final, Sabalenka versus Zhang. I watched this as well. Sabalenka is jacked. She's got massive arms. Her shoulders are just I was jealous while watching it. And Zhang is like a tiny little person. And I was watching it going, man, there needs to be weight classes in tennis.
It's a reminder of Serena Williams, isn't it? Just hitting her opponent off the court.
I was just I kept commenting it because me and my wife and my daughter were watching it, and I was like, look how jacked she is, man. I wish I had arms that big. Poor little Zhang, just running around the court like a little girl. She was never in it. It was Sabalenka just overpowered her. Did you watch it?
I saw bits of it, John. Sabalenka, the first woman to win back-to-back Australian Opens in 11 years. Straight sets win over Zhang. Sabalenka didn't drop a set for the whole tournament, John. As you said, overpowered Zhang, the 12th seed, 6-3, 6-2, 1 hour and 16 minutes on court. It was a lot quicker than the men's final.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. The last player to win the women's singles title in consecutive years at the Australian Open was fellow Belarusian Victoria Azarenka, who did it in 2012 and 2013, John. Okay. So there you go. Well done to Arina Sabalenka. She seems to be enjoying the Australian Open. One of back-to-back victories.
The men in tennis all look the same, actually. I find they all just look the same. But the size difference between Sabalenka and Zhang, I was I always say tennis is kind of like combat sports, and I was just reminded of that. They need weight classes. It was big, jacked, strong girl beating up a tiny little. It was just, that's all I could see the whole match. Yeah, it was way outclassed. And then at the end of it, they made Zhang sit there while they built a stage. She was obviously in distress, covering her face with a towel. Apparently only the Australian Open continues to do that. They made us to sit there for like 15 minutes in clear distress while they built a stage so Sabalenka could get a trophy. So I'd say they need to look at that for a while. Camera kept flashing to her, and I was like, I can't watch this anymore, and turned it off and watched X-Men, the animated series instead.
Yeah, I mean, obviously she's going to be disappointed in that initial period after the match, but she should look back and be very proud of her effort. There was nothing she could have done in that final, John. She was overpowered by a better player. It wasn't as if I always say this with any final of any major sporting event, if you're in the final, you'd much rather lose having never been in it than lose a close one that you had won and then lost it.
Yeah.
So there was just nothing she could have done, John. I'm sure when the dust settles, she'll be proud of the fact she made it through to the final. But you know what can you do? Your opponent just played better than you on the night, and they had more. They overpowered you.
Yeah, it was.
There's nothing could be done.
She was really outclassed, but she still looked good. There was some small periods where like she played really well. And, you know, the crowd was obviously fully on her side. It's quite funny because it was like Sabalenka's Belarusian. I don't know.
Belarusian, yeah.
Which is, you know, they're on the outer right now, and Zhang is Chinese, and normally they'd be on the outer, but people were like, lesser of two evils on the political spectrum. Go China. Yeah, like as I said, I just don't think they should make either of the people sit around and wait for them to construct that stage, and because it takes so long. They should just get to the presentations and stuff sooner, so that poor person who just lost the biggest event of their life can go and be with their family and.
Well, let them go into the dressing room, and compose themselves for 15 minutes, and then come back out.
Yeah. Instead of making you sit there.
Shed your tears, fair enough. You know, you've just lost.
Like she's sitting there
the
alone,
life.
like by herself. They have to sit there by themselves, alone, without the comfort from their coaching and family and stuff like that. It just seemed like really awful to me, and it was so voyeuristic. With the camera kept flashing to her, like she clearly didn't want to be seen. She was covering her face with a towel, burying her head and stuff, and the camera kept going to her and go, "Oh, she's so upset. Yep, leave her alone." It's like I felt so bad for her.
Full disclosure, John, the only reason I didn't watch the whole match was because the cricket was on at the same time. It was clashing with the cricket, so I flicked between the two. We didn't have that problem yesterday because the cricket was finished before the tennis started.
We'll get to that.
Yes.
In the other events...
so Matt Ebden won the men's doubles title, John. That's
with
good
someone
news.
else.
Good news for the Aussies. Won the final 7-6, 7-5 with India's Rohan Bopanna. And, a good effort from 15-year-old Aussie Emerson Jones, John. She reached the junior girls singles final, lost 6-4, 6-1. And as we talked about Storm Hunter on Thursday, unfortunately she went down on Thursday after our podcast in the women's doubles semis.
Now she's dead to me as well. That was the Australian Open. It was a great event. There was some controversies, some upsets, some craziness. And on the controversies, I saw this popped up on my Instagram.
Yes.
So, City of Perth Mayor Basil Zemplis was caught on camera saying the women's final is a reserves game, and has since come out and made an excuse. He asserted he was referring to reading the news while a major sporting event is on. Now, if you watch the footage, he clearly wasn't. But his PR person's come out.
Yeah, look, there was I think what happened, you might have watched an edited clip, John, so I understand where you're coming from, but he did post the whole clip, and you watched it and you sort of went, look, okay. He was talking to Michael Genovese, a Channel 9 reporter, and you sort of go, yeah, all right, okay. But, I mean, a couple of things here. Basil Zemplis has worked in the media for a long time. He worked as a sports reporter on Channel 7's coverage of the Australian Open, ran between 1994 and 2022. So this guy's had a long career in the media. So he should know better than anyone that the camera's always on and the microphone is always on.
The funniest part is where they go, you know we're on, right? And he's like, oh.
Yeah. And I think it's a really, and this is where you sort of have this is where you sort of go, look, what's going on here, mate? I mean, it's such an odd way to describe news readers going up against each other. Like, who cares enough about news reading to talk about news reading in that way? Oh, it's a reserves game.
Yep.
You going up against some other newsreader. It's such an odd way to refer to news reading.
It's fully not real, man.
That's the thing. I mean, that's why you get why people go, well, hang on, mate. You've just said, the women's finals, the reserves game.
Yeah.
That's a lot more, you can sort of, I guess, put that into place a lot better with talking about a tennis match than you can about talking about news reading. So that was an odd one. And I just watching it, I just got this sense that he was this, he's a politician, John. I just got this sense that he's a really arrogant type. Like he said to that reporter, he said, "Oh, is the tennis on tonight?" As if he doesn't. He's covered tennis for 28 years. And what you're claiming that you don't know that the women's finals on tonight? Like, give me a break.
When did the women's final ever not be on the Saturday before the men's final?
Clearly, he knows the Australian Open's been on. He knows that in the second week, on the weekend, the finals are on. And he's like, "Oh, is the tennis on tonight?" Like, come on, mate. It's just sort of an arrogant way of going. I don't need to know when the tennis is on.
It's but yeah, he's. It's so funny whenever you say that.
Yeah.
You're on, mate. The
thing is, John, a lot of people are not going to watch the whole clip either, are they?
No.
A lot of people are just going to go, "Oh, you're a sexist," and then they're not going to vote. Actually, I'm just trying to work out what his political... Perth Lord Mayor.
Yeah.
And he's going into...
Well, one of the funny things about that actually is, if the camera hadn't have been on, no one would have ever said anything because it would have been like a funny joke that he said, and then, but he got caught saying it. I just love his reaction. You're on, mate.
He was announcing that he'd enter state politics, seeking to be selected as the Liberal candidate for the Perth seat of Churchlands. Well, I mean, he's going to be judged at the ballot box then, John. If enough people have got it in for him, they won't vote for him.
If his opponents go negative, they're just going to play that over and over and over again. And they're my favourite political lads.
I know what clip I'd be playing if I was running against him, John.
My all-time favourite political lad is the Paul Keating. No, I didn't say go get a job. No, I didn't say go and get a job. No, I didn't say go get a job. Go and get a job.
That must have been back in the day.
It was.
I might be too young for that
second election because he's like people were protesting him and he screamed at them, "Go and get a job." Yeah. And then when they interviewed him, he was fully like, he said, "No, I didn't say go and get a job," and it's so obvious he did. So yeah, the Liberals actually put out a video just on repeat. "No, I didn't say go get a job. No, I didn't say go get a job. No, I didn't say go get a job. Go and get a job."
Look, to be fair to Basil Zemplis, John, that Nine News reporter Michael Genovese tweeted that the conversation had been taken out of context. But as I said, there's a couple, should be smart enough to be aware that the camera and the microphone is always on, given his media experience. And, just if you're in that situation, don't even have any conversation before. Just keep your mouth shut. Yeah. All right, are we on? All right, say what you got to say and then walk off.
How experienced, as you said, he's been in it for 20 years. He should always know. And all politicians should have that experience of like, oh, I don't talk. Once that attachment is on, I don't talk.
Yeah, he should know that better than anyone, John. It's very careless, and I think it's going to cost him a lot of votes.
It was really.
That's the thing. The beauty of the and I hate politics, John, but the beauty of the political system is the voters will be the judge on him at the ballot box. And that's how his fate will be decided.
I want to see that ad. No, I didn't say they were in the reserves. No, I didn't say they were in the reserves. Oh, it's a reserve game.
Yeah, he was part of AFL and Olympics broadcasts and also became weekend anchor of the breakfast TV show Weekend Sunrise. Elected Perth Mayor in 2020 and re-elected this year. He quit the media in 2022, John.
Oh, he was in Sunrise. Oh, God. I would vote against him for that. And, our favourite news subject, Nick Kyrgios, he's going to keep tennis alive for us all year. He'll always keep tennis alive because, he's got his OnlyFans, he's got his Twitter. He'll always say something stupid. And he said something stupid on Instagram.
Yeah, he's hinted at switching his national allegiance from Australia to Greece, John.
Greece can have him.
Seriously. He was born to a Greek father and a Malaysian mother. Yeah, but he's had this falling out with the AOC. John, again, I don't know why he's brought this up because he's, as I said in the last podcast, he's never going to play again. So, of course, he's never going to represent Australia again at the Olympics because he's never going to play again. So, anyway, in an Instagram post on Thursday night, he posted a photo with him and Tanasi Kokonakis, who's his ultimate,
Nick Kyrgios from Wish, yep.
Ultimate lapdog follower, John, of Nick Kyrgios, Tanasi Kokonakis, who's also of Greek heritage. They posed in a photo with Stefanos Tsitsipas, John. Kyrgios wrote on the post, if you can believe it, things could be looking nice for Team Greece soon.
Yeah, so if Kokonakis is Nick Kyrgios from Wish, then Tsitsipas is Nick Kyrgios from Greece.
So Kokonakis replied, trouble, and Tsitsipas added, Davis Cup loading.
Oh, gosh.
Kyrgios and Tsitsipas have had a rocky relationship, John, but it appears as though they seem to have mended a few fences. They really clashed at Wimbledon in 2022, John. During that match, Kyrgios called for Tsitsipas to be defaulted after hitting a ball into the crowd in anger.
Yep.
When his emotions clearly got the better of him. That match was full of controversy, John. Tsitsipas appeared to strike multiple balls with force at Kyrgios during the match. But yeah, they seem to have put all that behind them, John. But like you said, Greece can have him, John.
Greece can have him, man.
Here. And, one upside of the tennis summer ending is hopefully we can just forget about Nick Kyrgios for a while,
Don't
John.
be silly.
But unfortunately, he's going to keep coming up on our podcast.
He'll always come.
I have a feeling.
So he can have him. When Jelena Jokic changed allegiances, Australia was sad. When Nick Kyrgios changes allegiances, Australia will be happy.
Yeah, well, go and move there if you want. Go move to Greece. Go and relocate.
And he can take Nick Kyrgios from Wish with him.
Kokonakis, yeah.
Honestly, you can take him with him. They can go there and have fun. Enjoy, boys. And I don't know what the Greek version of Wish is, but Tsitsipas is definitely Nick Kyrgios from the Greek version of Wish. So enjoy. Greece can have him. I feel sorry for Greece if they have him. But in the end, it's going to be reported as Nick Kyrgios, ex-Australian player Nick Kyrgios. Yeah. Anyway, that's great for tennis. Not.
It's just. It's just.
When is the Olympics?
There's no end to his idiocy, John.
Yeah, it's right.
No end to it.
When does the Olympics start?
Is it July, John? July.
We looked it up
off the top of my head.
Yeah, 26th of July.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that probably, but the football will be on.
Yeah, we will. When we get there, we'll
touch on it. But the football will be on.
We'll
talk about the wrestling, the judo, the shooting, probably the tennis. But I hope Greece. Nick Kyrgios goes and plays for Greece, and if he even qualifies, and if he even makes it. So yeah.
Yeah, he won't play again, John. So there's no point worrying about whether he's going to go to the Olympics or not. He's just looking to pick a fight because he's looking for attention. He's just an attention-seeking bully with some serious issues, John.
Yeah, and it's just the kind of thing where it's like, I need attention. I'm not going to make the Australian team. I'm not going to play for Australia anyway. And
and even when we did our last podcast, he was even saying that he felt like he was doing what other players on the circuit were doing. And we said, I'm sure the likes of Djokovic, Sinner and Medvedev would really like to be commentating instead of playing in semi-finals and finals of Grand Slam.
Doing podcasts by travelling around the world. Cool. They can do that as well. I have a full-time job and I can do a podcast. If they wanted to do it, they could. Anyway, let's move on to cricket and some sad news, but also some more sad news. Yeah, I woke up and checked the score of Australia versus West Indies because I didn't check it yesterday. And then the website that popped up, I stupidly didn't go to SmartB to check. I just opened, I was tired, and I didn't have who won on the score breakdown. I was adding up in my head, and I was like, that can't be right. That seems like Australia lost. And then, I woke up a bit more and went and checked on SmartB and found, yes, Australia lost against the West Indies.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, John. Quite an extraordinary result. John, I'm going to be honest, I think it's great for cricket that the West Indies won that test match. I think the summer needed it. We needed some unpredictability. I've said before a number of times that, generally, John, there are three certainties in life: death, taxes, and that Australia will win the cricket in summer.
Yeah.
When they're at home. So, I love it, John. I love that the West Indies had a win. It's injected a lot of life into Test cricket. We were worried that Test cricket was becoming a three-team game: England, Australia, and India. This has brought the West Indies back to life, John. That great side they had in the 80s and early 90s, the likes of Curtly Ambrose, Courtney Walsh, Brian Lara, these sorts of cricketers. Is this the West Indies haven't had a genuine superstar since Brian Lara, but Shamar Joseph, is this the emergence of the new superstar of West Indies cricket, John? That unbelievable 7-wicket haul. He turned up he wasn't even going to go to the ground after Mitchell Starc hit him on the toe and split his toe open batting the night before. Wasn't even going to go to the ground, and the doctor said, yeah, come down, you may as well come down. Goes to the ground, then ends up, I think he had some injections. Yep. Then he goes on and takes 7 wickets and bowls them to victory, John.
I think they can build an entire attack around him, basically, West Indies, and on the back of that. I mean, it is his first series.
Yes.
And, I think
so we don't want to go off too early.
We looked it up before, and it was his just to confirm, it was his debut, and he smashed it in the first one as well. He got all the Australian superstars out. But he looks to be a player of the future, and obviously he's going to play in the one-dayers, probably the T20s that are coming up. Who knows? I don't know. What's next? The one-dayers, right?
I think it's the one-dayers next, and then the 2020s, John.
Yeah, and we'll see how he goes in them. But he could be, he could be that next superstar, and that's what the West Indies need. It's sad that Australia lost, but it's good that Australia lost. Steve Smith didn't get out, which...
Yeah, carried the bat in that. So he's just the 9th batter to carry the bat in the 4th innings of a Test match, John. He's the first opener to carry the bat in the 4th innings since Dean Elgar against India in 2018. The previous Australian to carry the bat was David Warner, John, against New Zealand in 2011. That was also an unsuccessful chase in Hobart. Smith, the first opener to carry his bat in tests since Tom Latham against Sri Lanka back in 2018, John. So there you go.
The reviews are, of course, sports fans only have a one-day memory, and so I've seen a lot of people saying, Steve Smith proved he can do opening, he can be an opener, and, it's the same as with Joseph. It's one match, so they've got to go over to New Zealand. And I think if Steve Smith can do well against New Zealand, then he's proving he can be an opener. But his first 3 innings as an opener were not good. They showed he wasn't that good as an opener.
Out for 6 in the first innings. To be fair to him, though, John, I mean, he does aim up when the pressure.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's one thing you'd say about Steve Smith. Like when that 2019 Ashes series, without Steve Smith, Australia probably don't win a Test, John.
Yeah.
But they drew the series and retained the Ashes in England. So that's one thing I'd say in his favour, John. I mean, he failed twice in the first Test, but they didn't need him in the first Test. They won it anyway. He does aim up when his team's under the pump and in trouble, and he did that yesterday, but it wasn't quite enough for Australia.
Well, the other guys need to aim up as well. The other,
yes.
People are talking about Steve Smith as the opener, but they're forgetting that Green has replaced him, and Green hasn't performed well at. It's Green, right? Yeah. Hasn't performed well at 4. So,
he hasn't. No.
And that's Steve Smith being an opener is all well and good, but if you don't have a fourth anchor batsman that can play the fourth spot, then Steve Smith needs to move back there, and they need to bring in a proper opener like Cameron Bancroft.
I'm pretty sure it was 90 not out for Smith.
91
not
yeah.
out. Yeah, it was 91 not out. Yeah, so...
and what did we lose by? 7? 14?
8 runs.
8.
Yeah.
All he needed was a couple of fours.
So one thing I'd say, John, I thought, with batting with Hazelwood at the end there, he gave Hazelwood 2 balls to face at the end of that over. I thought he probably should have only given him 1 to get through. Gave him 2. I don't know, did that leave Hazelwood? Well, clearly it did leave him exposed. He got out. That I know it's a little thing, John, but the little things count when you got an 8-run margin.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to be too critical of Steve Smith because he aimed up yesterday and a lot of other Australian batsmen didn't aim up. What about Travis Head getting a king pair, John? So Travis Head's only the 3rd player to bag a king pair in men's tests for Australia after Adam Gilchrist against India at the Eden Gardens in 2001 and Ryan Harris against England at the Adelaide Oval in 2010. So that's a king terrible pair for Travis Head after he made that 100 in the first test. So that was disappointing, John.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, so John, Shamar Joseph's the first visiting bowler with a 7+ wicket haul in Australia since Matthew Hoggard's 7 for 109 in 2006 at the Adelaide Oval. That 216 fourth innings target that Australia couldn't chase at the Gabba, that's the lowest target for them at home in the last 25 years that they haven't chased down. Previous instance of Australia losing at home chasing a lower target was 175 against England at the MCG in 1998.
Yeah, because West Indies didn't bat all that well, and then still Australia couldn't run it down. So I think that's the main takeaway. Their batting order is not right. Their batting order is just not right because of the whole wanting to put Steve Smith at number 1 and then manufacturing a number 4 and whatever else they're doing in there. Look, it's early days, and so they've got to go over to New Zealand now and do the same thing. But doing it in New Zealand, if it's a failure in New Zealand, then they need to shake it up because India coming over here at the end of this year, and India being the last team to win a Test series in Australia, they really need to make sure they do something to get that back. And Steve Smith at number 1 might be all well and good, but the rest of the batting order needs to also work.
Yeah, yesterday, John Khawaja out for 10, Labuschagne out for 5. Green actually contributed yesterday, 42, but Travis Head, as we said, that king pair. Mitch Marsh out for 10, Alex Carey out for 2. Just not getting enough when the pressure was on. This was a David and Goliath test match.
Yeah.
I would love to have known what the West Indies were paying to win that test match at the start, John. I wish I had a lot of money on it.
So let's see if I can actually find it. It was finished yesterday, right? When did it start? Thursday.
Started on Thursday.
Thursday, which not back December 25th. Australia versus West Indies, $21.
Oh wow, wowee! And that first innings batting as well, John. Labuschagne failed in the first innings as well, so a disappointing match from him. Green failed in the first innings, out for 8, as we said. Travis Head, that king pair. Smith made 6 in the first innings. At least Khawaja made 75 in that first innings, so he made a contribution there. But Mitch Marsh out for 21, so a poor match from him, John. And Carey made 65, so well done to him for that first innings. But a number of Aussies failing in both innings there, John. Mitch Marsh, Travis Head and Labuschagne. Disappointing, John. And we'd have to look at that decision by Cummins to declare behind in the first innings at bizarre. 9 down. When you're losing by 8 runs, I'm sorry, but that's going to come under the microscope at the end of the match. I know they took a wicket. I think that was late on day 2 where he declared 9 down. I know they took a West Indies wicket late on day 2 when they declared and put them in. But, you never know if they had hung around and the 2 last batters had swung the bat a bit, they might have made up that 8 or 9 run deficit at the end of the day, John. So that decision to declare behind now comes under great scrutiny from Pat Cummins, John.
So just for the odds, actually, because if you go to smartb.com.au, you can sign up and you're able to access all past data as well. They actually opened the betting at $44 and hit as high as $60. And then finished up the thing.
Opened at $60.
They got as high as 60, and they finished finished up at 21. So it started at 44. If I had put $5 on West Indies to win at $44, but yeah, it's as high as 60. We've got to get the date. We are getting the dates and times added as well, so you'll be able to do a comparison between the scorecard and the odds fluctuations.
You're looking on smartb.com.au, so that's an advantage of smartb.com.au, John. You get these odds fluctuations. It's interesting.
Absolutely.
It's interesting to look back on it, especially when you got such an outsider winning a match like that.
Imagine you had $1,000 on $60.
Just a couple of other stats on this one, John. That 8-run loss by Australia, that was their first loss in a day-night test match. They won each of their previous 11 day-night test matches. And also, in contrast, it was the West Indies' first ever win in a day-night test match. They'd lost their previous 4 day-night tests. It was the West Indies' first win over Australia since 2003 in Test cricket. Their last one was by 3 wickets at St John's. West Indies played 20 tests against Australia in the previous 20 years, losing 16, while another 4 ended in a draw. It's the first win for the West Indies in Australia since the 10-wicket win in Perth in February 1997, John. So that's 27 years ago now. West Indies lost 15 of the 17 tests they played in Australia between the 2 wins. So there you go, John. Some extraordinary statistics to come out of that game.
And on top of that, the most depressing thing in the entire world happened.
Yes.
England beat India in India.
Yes.
I'm appalled and disappointed in India as a nation right now for allowing England to actually win anything, let alone a test match on Indian soil.
It's extraordinary, John. So India had a 190-run lead on the first innings. England made 246. India responded by making 436, led by 190 on the first innings and got beaten. England making an incredible 420 in the second innings. And India restricted to just 202 in the second innings. England winning by 28 runs, an extraordinary victory.
Unbelievable.
Quite incredible, John.
I'm appalled. I'm shocked and appalled at India as a nation, and they all need to go and have a long, hard look at themselves. I wonder if Johnny Bairstow is going to write a book. I wonder if this has solved their Ashes stumping, and now the English cricket team can actually, come back to get out of their own heads. I hope not.
Ollie Pope made 196 in that second innings. He was named man of the match, so he won the game for England with that 196, John.
Oh my God. Appalling. Appalling.
So there's only been 2 previous instances of India losing test matches after taking a 100-plus first innings lead. They lost to Sri Lanka in Galle after conceding a 192-run lead in 2015, while England overcame a 132-run first innings deficit in Birmingham in 2022. John?
A few weeks ago we were talking about there's only 3 test nations left, but I kept saying, I don't know if England is actually in there. We'll have to see how they go. Well, they are in there. And also maybe West Indies is jumping up there too. So if we have 4 test nations, keep growing that, boys.
Yeah, it's going to be... I'm looking forward to... Obviously, couldn't watch a whole lot of that test match, John, because it was on at the exact same time as the Australia-West Indies test. And with the tennis on as well, John, it was hard to fit this in, but it's a 5-test series, that one, so looking forward to watching a bit more of that. That's a long
series.
Looking forward to watching a bit more of that as the series goes on, John.
And in other cricket news, Pat Cummins is ICC Men's Cricketer of the Year. A fair call on that. I was surprised. I was actually surprised to see that.
He won the Sir Garfield Sobers Award as ICC Men's Cricketer of the Year. He was also named captain of the ICC Test Team of the Year. Obviously, 2023, Australia retained the Ashes in England and he captained Australia to victories in the World Test Championship and the Cricket World Cup. John, I think that was, he's the first Australian to be recognised as a men's ICC Cricketer of the Year since Steve Smith in 2015. I think that was a factor in that loss to the West Indies as well, John. Fatigue, I think, was a factor for the Australians. We got to remember last year they had a tour to India and a tour to England, the two toughest tours in world cricket for Australia, and then they had a Cricket World Cup, and then they've had a full test summer here. So it was the 5th test of the summer here, and I think it all caught up with them in the end, John. I think fatigue got them, and the West Indies capitalised on it in that second test that finished yesterday. It was a good win. I don't know what you call it, but... Well, that's the thing, John. It finished 1-1, and Australia were actually presented with the Frank Borrell Trophy yesterday because they'd retained it. But it really felt like the West Indies...
A win?
You really felt like the West Indies were the winners, John.
They shouldn't ever do 2-day series.
That's the thing. I think now
Test series.
And after Shamar Joseph's performance yesterday, those 7 wickets like we've talked about, wouldn't we have loved to have seen a third one, John?
Yeah.
So I think now if you're not willing to do 3 tests in a test series, then just don't have the series.
Yeah,
at all.
Exactly.
It's either 3 or you don't have it.
I don't understand.
Don't have 2 tests.
How did the scheduler sit down and do something like that? All right, we're going to do a West Indies are going to come over after our Pakistan. You know what we'll do? We'll do 2.
Because the problem is they would have looked at it and thought, well, Australia's just going to win 2-0 easily, and they thought, well, who cares? There's no point putting a third on.
Yeah, but there's always a point in putting a third one. I mean, like 3-0 is better than 1 each. Actually, the chances. It doesn't matter who it is. The chances of 1 each, and you're left there like it should never be even. It's
look. I agree.
1, 3, 5.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying that's probably what they were.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not defending.
It's just like
I think there should either be 3 or 0.
It's like they should have made it. If they were going to make it 2, they should have made it 1. It should always be.
Well, 1 makes more sense than 2.
Yeah, it should always be odd. All right, cricket. Pay attention. It should always be odd. 1, 3, 5, 7.
Give Hobart haven't had a test. Give them a test. Make that the 3rd test. You'd much rather see a 3rd test than these meaningless ODIs.
How many ODIs are they playing?
I'm pretty sure it's 3 ODIs and 3 T20s. So they're willing to do 3 ODIs and 3 T20s, but not do 3 tests.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's so dumb.
And John, I care a lot more about Test cricket than ODIs or T20s.
Moving onwards. So the journalists have asked Elise Perry about Australia Day.
And she's given a common sense response.
As we discussed with Pat Cummins' response.
And Steve Smith as well, calling for the date to be changed. Elise Perry giving a very common sense response, John. Her quote was, "I think that's a much broader national discussion and one that requires much more acumen than I have." Oh. Well done, Elise Perry. Yeah. Some common sense.
So a cricketer shouldn't? A cricketer isn't an expert on whether Australia Day should have the day.
If only Pat Cummins and Steve Smith could take a leaf out of Elise Perry's book.
I'm shocked. I'm just shocked that a cricketer isn't the person that we should be looking to for the answers to all the world's problems.
Funny that, isn't it? You would never have thought that it's removed from a cricketer's area of expertise.
Yeah, I'm just shocked. And one more thing you've noted down here. Are you sure?
Yeah. So I know you might look at that and go, well, did you watch the game yesterday? Yeah. But I still think it's a point to make, John.
So Dan has written on our rundown, Australia is too dominant at home for Test cricket's own good.
Yes.
Really, Dan?
I did.
The West Indies would like a word with you.
I did write this on... before the day's play yesterday, John. But that having been said, I still think it's a point worth going through. And I've got some a bit of research here to go through with you on this one.
Yep.
So obviously this was taken, I'll just make it clear, taken before the day's play yesterday. So it doesn't include that result yesterday with the West Indies beating Australia. So had Pat Cummins and co. beaten the West Indies in Brisbane, it would have been just the 12th time in history since 1876-77 that the Australian men's test side has whitewashed their opponents in a home summer. That loss to the West Indies was their only loss of the summer, won all the series result. They beat Pakistan 3-0 before it, John. So last summer it was only wet weather and that South African resistance at the SCG that stood in the way of that. They won by 164 runs, 419 runs, 6 wickets, plus an innings and 182 runs against South Africa last summer, John. People were craving closer contests. And this summer we got a lot of the same, John, apart from yesterday. They beat Pakistan by 360 runs in the first test, 79 runs in the second test, and 8 wickets in the third test. The first test against the West Indies, they won by 10 wickets. So if you take out that 8-run win by the West Indies yesterday, it was all one-way traffic, John. Before that result yesterday, John, Australia were unbeaten in their last 14 tests on home soil. It was the Australian team's best run since a streak of 17 undefeated matches from 2012 to 2015 in Australia. We should point out they have lost their last 2 home series against India as well, John.
India's the only one who can beat them.
So interestingly, John, more than half of test summers where Australia has managed a 100% win rate have occurred since 99-2000. So in recent times, Australia's had huge dominance at home. So since the turn of the century, again, this start taken before yesterday's result, Australia won 96 of 133 matches at home, or we can say 96 of 134 now. And that was 72%, the 96 of 133, and they lost just 16, so 12%. That's now 17 now. So that's a far higher home winning record in the same period than India, 60.6%, and England, 56.8%, and South Africa, 62%. So there you go. And yeah, if we break it down into 5-year blocks, Australia's best run at home came from 2005 to 2009 when they'd won 22 of 28 matches under Ricky Ponting, and the fewest losses in a 5-year span came from 2000 to 2004 under Steve Waugh when they lost just 2 games at a loss rate of just 6.45%, John. So I still wanted to bring these stats up even though the West Indies won yesterday, John, because I think that win by the West Indies yesterday was great for the game. Test cricket in Australia this century has been far too predictable, John, and it's great that the West Indies have knocked Australia off here. And it was so interesting, John. I haven't had a look at the TV ratings numbers for that game for yesterday's play, but they would have been through the roof, John, considering the circumstances.
Let's see if they've released them. I don't think they would have. No, they don't. Get a player. No, they haven't done TV ratings yet. It'll come out in a few days. They're always a few days behind. Yeah, they've only got up to day 3. What day was it?
Yesterday, day 4.
Yeah, they've only got up to day 3.
Okay, well that'll be. Well, maybe we could talk about that on Thursday,
Yeah.
John, when we get those ratings figures.
Look at that.
Sure, they would have been through the roof.
It was already sitting at 498,000 total over the course of the 3 days. That's pretty good.
Yeah, extraordinary.
Yeah, look, it's Australia at home in any series, any tests. It's all relying on India coming out here and doing something if they don't. If you want Australia to actually have challenging tests, I think everybody has shown that. No matter that West Indies won yesterday, that's just an anomaly, an exception to the rule, and it doesn't prove anything.
That's why I still thought we'll talk about this.
A lot of people on the internet today will definitely go for exceptions. It'll be the conversations always go like, well, Australia's won 96% of their whatever during this period, and then someone will go, yeah, but West Indies beat them. It's like, yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that they've won so much.
No, that's only one result. A lot of those statistics.
Everyone will on the internet. The internet today is arguments based around exceptions to a rule, and the rule is Australia is just a little bit too dominant at home, and although ratings are up because I kind of feel like Australians in general like to watch Australia smash other people. It's not good for the game at all.
No.
And it's good. What's good for the game is that West Indies won.
Yes.
And And hopefully that kind of can continue. As Australia's got to go over to New Zealand. New Zealand is pretty dominant at home because their grounds are...
And on those green pitches over there, with the ball moving around, those New Zealand pacemen will be difficult for Australia.
I want to see what happens there. I really want to see what happens there with Steve Smith in the Open and the current batting order of Australia. I really want to see if they power through, even if they're getting dominated, or they make changes. And then, like I keep saying, I can't wait for the summer of cricket this year to see how India goes, because India are going to come here and want to get Australia back for the World Cup loss. There's a T20 World Cup in June as well. And if Australia wins that, especially if they beat India, that summer of cricket is going to be like really spiteful and exciting. So more teams need to build up their test squads to challenge Australia, and India at home as well and stuff like that. But England beat India at home. Everybody can beat England at home, like everybody. They don't win anything. England suck. Well, that's really true. Like, Australia is too dominant at home for Test cricket's own good, and hopefully that more teams can do better in the future.
Yeah, well, I never thought I'd see the West Indies win a Test match out here again, John. It was getting to that point.
Well, paying $60 at one point.
Yeah, paying $60 to win. Geez, you would have loved something on that. I thought we were getting to a point where we weren't going to see them come out here and play Test cricket much more. And if they ever did, Australia would just steamroll them. Yeah. So it's great that the West Indies have won that Test. 27 years since their last Test win in Australia. And in fact, John, when I saw that they'd won out here in 1997, I was surprised. I thought it would have been even longer than that since the West Indies.
I don't remember them ever winning.
Oh, I thought it would have been early 90s or even back in the 80s when the West Indies last won a Test out here. I did not think it would be 1997. So.
I don't remember my 1997 year. So when I was 17 years old, I don't remember probably the whole year. So that would explain why I don't remember West Indies winning then.
The West Indies were dominant in the 80s, early 90s, and then Australia were extremely dominant between about 95 and 05. So, I just did not think the West Indies would have won a Test out here in the late 90s. But
absolutely. Anyway, but we can move on to Rugby League, and honestly, guys, it's just our opinion segment for the 12th placed 2023 12th placed Sea Eagles preview for 2024. And so let's just kick into it. We can look at their gains and losses. Now, out of all of the teams that we've previewed so far, their gains and losses change the makeup of even the genetics of their team more than any other team so far. So they've gained Luke Brooks, obviously, as their major signing. Bailey Hodgson, Itasi James, Jackson Paulo, Tommy Talau, Corey Waddell from your Bulldogs. Brandon Wakeham. It's funny because they've gained a lot of Tigers, like 4 Tigers. 4 out of 7 players they've gained Tigers. Like, who the hell's buying ex-Tigers? They have lost, and again, like a few players to the Tigers. The Fainu brothers, Latu and Samuela. They've lost Morgan Harper, Sean Kepi, Kelma Tuilagi, and Kaio Weeks. They have got a whole bunch of re-signings, but they just retain their team. But I think the genetic makeup of their team has changed. They're basically the first team to sign, I don't know, I use air quotes, a gun spine member in Luke Brooks, really, a gun. I don't know if he's going to...
he's one thing he is on, he's experienced. I mean, with Luke Brooks partnering DC in the halves, that means Manly boasts the most experienced halves pairing in the NRL with 510 NRL games between them.
Well,
so
he can play
experience.
Can play 7 and 6. We talked a lot about Manly and the fact that they've got a lot of money wrapped up in just a very small number of players. There's a whole bunch of comments going on right now about Manly in our on our Facebook, and we'll get to those social media blower-uppers.
See what the blower-upper is.
There's actually a bit of an argument going on there, and I can't keep up. We can't keep up to date with all the comments between a couple of the guys, but we'll just do the overarching one that's kicked it all off and discuss our thoughts on that. But now, historically, if DCE was injured, Manly wouldn't have a half. they have to makeshift half or bring someone who's like super inexperienced up. Tom Trbojevic injured. They don't have a fullback. At least now they have a senior half that can cover for DCE. You know, when he's away in Origin and stuff.
I guess the issue is with Brooks is he does have experience, but it's bad experience.
Yeah,
because he's never played a finals game. He had an 11 season career at the West Tigers and never played a finals game as the halfback.
So they've been using what's his name, Schuster, Josh Schuster. Schuster in the halves.
So he can go back to the edge.
Which he's
now.
way more comfortable and a much better back rower. He was like he's a makeshift half. Now they actually have a half who's senior and experienced and like a gun, but. It's
Schuster played 14 games at 5'8" last year, so now he can move back.
It doesn't make up for the fact that if they lose Tom Trbojevic, and he gets lost every time, they lose. Okay, he's played 18 out of 48 games in the last 2 years, and it's 20 wins and 27 losses in the period. Simple fact is, Manly wins. Manly wins when Trbojevic is on the field, and they don't when he isn't. It doesn't matter who the halves are.
Yeah, you mentioned that 18 of 48 games. That's because of shoulder and pec injuries. That have kept him out. The last time he played a full season, John, was in 2021, and he won the Dahlia Medal, and Manly made the top 4. So. Manly are the only club to have won a premiership in each of the last 5 decades, John. The 70s, 80s, 90s.
So they're due one.
2000s and 2010s. They've had a disappointing couple of years, John. They've only played finals 3 times in the last 9 seasons. Their last premiership was 2011. That's 13 years ago now. I know there are some clubs with longer waits than that.
Yeah, but
that's still a long time. So there you go, John. There's a few stats there for you on Manly.
And their draw that sits in the middle of the difficulties. They play the Titans, Warriors, Raiders, Rabbitohs, Roosters, Eels, Dragons, and Panthers twice. So obviously in that, Panthers and Roosters are big dangers. You know, Warriors in the middle of there. Eels, Rabbitohs could go either way. Titans, Raiders, Dragons, you know. They're another team with 0 5-day turnarounds. They play 2023 top 8 teams 12 times, top 4 only 6 games, but bottom 4 also 6 times. We've gone through the bottom 4 and we've left all of them out of the top 8, so we don't expect any of them to be a danger game for the Seagulls. They're opening 6 rounds where they can set their season as Rabbitohs in the US, then Roosters at home, Eels away, Dragons away, Panthers at home, Warriors away. So it's middle of the road, a few easy ones or middle of the road ones, a couple of hard ones in there. Yeah, they could win the premiership with the team they have in their starting 17. They can win a premiership, but if 2 of them go down, then they miss the 8. That's always been the problem with the Seagulls. They got Anthony Seibold over there, and I've mentioned before, if Anthony Seibold is a good coach, he's spent a year fixing that problem. Looks like they haven't, and they have waiting in the wings. Like their coaching staff is Anthony Watmo, Brett Stewart, Jeff Tuvey, Matt Orford, Jamie Buer, and Solomon Hamano. Tuvey is an experienced coach. Matt Orford is apparently, by all reports, ready to take the step up to coach. He's a Manly, he understands the Manly DNA. If Anthony Seibold doesn't do well this year, I would expect his job to be on the line. I always run, fake bets at the beginning of the year with which coach I think will go first, and
I think a lot of his job security hinges on Tom Trbojevic.
Yeah, that's it. But you can't really run a team like that.
I know. It's a high risk salary cap strategy that they run, and as a result, they've only made the finals 3 times in the last 9 seasons. So, John, I've done a predicted lineup for Manly. I might just run you through that. So, Tom Trbojevic, obviously at fullback. Let's hope, John, that he gets an injury-free season.
If he even gets through the trials.
Christian Tuipulotu and Jason Saab on the wings. I've got Ruben Garrick and Tolu Kula in the centres. The halves, obviously, we're talking about John Luke Brooks and Daly Cherry Evans. In the front row, I've got Josh Aloiai and Taniela Pasika, and Lachlan Croker is the dummy half.
Yep.
In the back row, I've got Hamile Olakauatu and Josh Schuster, like we talked about, moving into the back row now after playing much of last year in the halves. Jake Trbojevic, the overpaid Jake Trbojevic on $950,000 a year off the top of my head, John. He is overpaid, but he is the lock forward. On the bench, I've got Gordon Chan Kum Tong, Toa Fofoe Sipley, Ethan Bullimore and Ben Trbojevic on my bench there, John.
Yeah, Ben Trebojevic's last year. He's got a... Well, you never know. They could end up keeping Ben Trbojevic to keep Tom happy as well. By the way, just so you know, you can't say Jake Trbojevic is overpaid because you're not entitled to your opinion. You haven't played first-grade rugby league.
Yeah. So, sorry, John. I'll bear that in mind next time.
Next time. Just even though he's fully overpaid, just so you know.
Just a bit of a look at their injuries, John. A few players I mentioned there are on the casualty ward list at the moment. Christian Tuipulotu, he's got a knee injury. They're hoping he'll be right for round one. Josh Aloiai, a shoulder, same deal, John. Hopefully back for round one. Carl Lawton, I don't think I had him in my team there, John. I didn't. He's battling to be available for selection with a shoulder injury. So Matt Lodge is the only injury that looks likely to spill over into the season, John. He's got a knee injury. He'll be back between rounds 4 to 8, but I couldn't find a spot for him in that team there, John.
Yeah, I remember when he came back, they were talking him up for Origin. Where is he now? He's been through 17 clubs, and that kind of showed at that time the depth of the New South Wales front row forwards, actually, rather than Matt Lodge. Look, I'm being lenient with them, and I'm going to assume that Tom Trbojevic stays fit, and I've got them at 6th this year.
I've got exactly the same, John. Exactly the same. Only because Tom Trbojevic is due for an injury-free season, given that the last two he's been on the sidelines. He's only 27. He's not that old yet, John, so I think he is due for an injury-free season, hoping that he has some good luck there. As I said before, the last time he had an injury-free season, he was the Dally M medalist in 2021, and Manly finished in the top 4. Yeah. So based on that and that alone, I've got them finishing 6th and in the top 8. If he goes down with a season-ending injury again, John, my prediction immediately changes and they go nowhere near making the top 8.
I put him at the 16th position if he goes down.
Yeah, if he goes down injured, they're bottom 4.
And that's it. And that, if Anthony Seibold is a good coach, that's what he's got to fix. But yeah, that's the Sea Eagles. That's our first team from outside of the 8 moving into the 8.
Yes.
And the Sea Eagles were thereabout for some of the year last year, and then obviously Tom Trbojevic going down in Origin ruined their lives. So that's honestly, guys, it's just our opinion. Let's get ready to cop the abuse. Although I don't think the 37 Sea Eagles fans are going to even care because there's only about 37 of them. They won't travel over the bridge and they probably don't travel on the internet either.
Yeah, I noticed the previews that have gone up on YouTube, John, the Tigers and Bulldogs ones seem to be attracting a lot of attention.
It's got a lot of flack for the Tigers ones.
Gee, the Tigers, I'll tell you what about the Tigers supporters. They are a passionate bunch. The Bulldogs ones are as well, but gee, I'm surprised the level of passion of Tigers supporters.
Yeah, and I'm really surprised there's no Dragons.
I would have thought they would have had a bit more attention, John. But anyway, Tigers and Bulldogs attracting a lot of...
I kind of think, Dragons fans are really fair weather fans and they've disappeared over the last few years and forget the Dragons exist. What'll happen is the Dragons go well, then they'll start jumping on, because then the Dragons fans will start going looking for every negative comment about the Dragons for the past 5 years, and they're like, yeah, but look at 2024.
Yeah, that's the difference between the Tigers and the Dragons. The Tigers supporters seem to get more interested the more they're struggling.
Yeah.
And Dragons supporters seem to just disappear off the face of the earth.
So yeah, that's it for this week. We're gonna have to start doing 2-a-days soon because we're running out of time. But that's all right. That'll be fun. On to the news. Michael Maguire, new State of Origin New South Wales camp, is set to name Joseph Suaalii in the Blues camp on February 3rd and 4th because even though he plays rugby union, he's indicated that he may come back to the Roosters after his rugby union contract is finished. This is beyond ridiculous to me that Michael Maguire would name someone who plays for rugby union and not just name someone who's plays rugby league.
I mean, he does have one more year in rugby league before he goes to union in 2025. So I think that's sort of why he's been named in the squad.
Yeah, well, if that was Queensland, they wouldn't let him in. They probably would. If it was Queensland, they would say that they wouldn't let him in. But still, like, yeah, they've got to win. I discussed before they've got to win. But I don't think Joseph Sewell, he's signed to go to union. He's a rugby union player now who's just hanging around. He's not a rugby league player anymore. And there are other... Because the Blues camp, the camps at the beginning of the year is like for, every possible emerging Blue to hang around with. They have like 50 people there or whatever. And he's just another one in that group. But I just don't think he's the kind of guy you want around. Like, is he a passionate Blues supporter?
I just don't think he's good enough to play State of Origin. I just don't think he hasn't set the world on fire yet in his time in rugby league, and so that's sort of why I wouldn't have him above any other reason. In terms of they're worried that he's going to promote rugby union in his last year of rugby league by potentially playing State of Origin. Rugby union is no longer a threat to rugby league in Australia, so I don't think I'd be too worried about that, to be honest. Promoting rugby union, I mean, they can't even get a page in the newspaper anymore. I wouldn't be too concerned about that.
They're 3 centimetres as a footnote on the bottom of a rugby league story about Joseph Suaalii. Yeah, basically.
For me, it's more an issue of he's just not at State of Origin. He's not at State of Origin standard.
Well, his representative career is for Samoa. 6 games for Samoa. He's never scored a try. He hasn't exactly even set the world on fire for Samoa. He played in that ridiculous game where they got smashed by like 70 points. They smashed somebody by it was Greece by 70 points. Sorry, they smashed Greece by 70 points, but he didn't even get a try in that. He's supposed to be an attacking weapon, and he can't even score a try in a 72-point victory or 70-point victory. Like I just don't think he should be there. It's just weird. I know Michael Maguire has to win, and obviously he's got to pick the best squad, best team. But do you really want this guy around all of the other Blues players coming through? My answer would be no. But they may be inviting Jack Whiten because Jack Whiten has indicated that he's planning to unretire from his retirement.
Yeah, Whiten cited family reasons and wanting to win a premiership at the Raiders last year.
Never going to happen,
as his reasons for retiring from rep football. It's strange to me. I would have thought the Rabbitohs are more of a chance of winning a premiership than the Raiders, although the Raiders did have a better season than the Rabbitohs last year. So played for Canberra for 12 years, and now he's gone to South Sydney, links up with Latrell Mitchell, his close friend there. If he wants to come back and play rep football, good luck to him. He'll be available for selection and he'll be considered for selection.
He was a big loss last year, but he wasn't going to change the game to win. Big loss for New South Wales last year when he was retired. He didn't play last year, he was retired last year, 2023, that's right, yeah. But, if he can come back in his old legs, what is he, 30?
30.
He's 30, yeah. As a 30-year-old centre, come to New South Wales and play well and win us a series, then I'm all for it. But as you said, retiring from rep football to win a premiership with Canberra was never going to happen. Unretiring while you're at the Rabbitohs when you have more of a chance of winning a premiership is a little bit bizarre. Jack Whiten seems to be quite a strange duck. Well, he's going to the rep footy, the Blues camp. I don't think Suaalii should be. But the Dragons are in a bit of a bind at the moment. But as I keep saying, we keep talking about they've got to support Flanagan. 2024, they have the most players coming off contract out of any club, with 14 players coming off contract, and their main target is to keep Tyrell Sloan at fullback. We discussed the Dragons and whether Zach Lomax could play fullback and so on, and Flanagan at the beginning of his tenure said it's a two-way battle. By all reports, Tyrell Sloan's been training the house down and has been performing at fullback and will be given first choice over Lomax, which was the team we named.
Yeah, 14 players coming off contracts. Probably not a bad thing, though, John.
No, it's really good.
They need to overhaul the roster, so it's probably good that they got that many players coming off contract. It makes it a lot easier to overhaul the roster.
Great for Shane Flanagan in his first year as a coach.
Yeah.
It's great for, even if they do go bad, he can, like I said, I think the best possible outcome for Shane Flanagan is for them to get the wooden spoon. So next year he can overhaul the entire roster and go better.
I did see some conflicting reports on the money that they're prepared to offer Sloan. I'm not sure.
What I saw was, and I heard was, it's $1 million contract.
Right.
And some reports were saying like $1 million a year.
Right.
But it's $1 million contract.
Right.
Over 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so it's not $1 million a year.
No. He's like 20 years old or something.
So it's good that we've got that cleared up, because there was.
No, I saw like $1 million a year.
I was like, what? I was like, I need to clear this up with John.
Yeah, no. It's so it's my understanding was it's 2 years for $1 million with a third year option. But then I saw some other thing saying it was a 3-year $1 million contract. But that didn't seem like it was right to me that they would be offering him $333,000 a year or whatever, Like, it seemed to me that more believable, $500,000 a year for a fullback that's training the house down, has won the race over Zach Lomax. $500,000 a year is probably good for him for 2 years with an option for a third in the Dragons' favour is good. So, yeah, hopefully he goes well.
Yeah, he said before that he's had some shortcomings in defence, and apparently he's been doing a lot of work on that.
Well, I saw some video of him, and he looks kind of jacked, so he's, got to put bulk on. He was always a little bit small to me.
I think they're also ramping up negotiations with their second rower, Jaden Sewer, as well, John.
They should.
So it sounds like you're a big fan of him as well.
Yeah, he's great. There's going to be a few extensions this year, but hopefully they do a big house cleaning, get the brooms out. So Tyrell Sloan runs around at like 84 kilos, but from what the footage I saw, he looks a bit bigger. We'll see what he actually comes out on the day, but if he could get to 90 kilos, that fullback with his speed, it'd be really good. Continuing with the Dragons, our man Junior Amon says the NRL decision to deregister him rocked him and took a while to get over it. His lawyer has announced he's planning to appeal the verdict. The appeal has been submitted, and they'll be trying to, get his conviction squashed. First of all, it hasn't been a while, so I don't know how he can say it took him a while to get over it. It's only been like 3 weeks.
Maybe next time don't attack someone with a hammer. It's probably not. What
did he expect to happen? When he was when he was found guilty, did he really expect the NRL to keep him there? You had guys like Jake Friend being deregistered for a year. I know that was a while ago, but what did they really expect to happen? The internet is not happy with his statement, really. Like, no one is buying it. Everyone is like, look at this guy. He's doesn't even sound contrite about it. He doesn't even sound like he was in the wrong. All he sounds like was like, oh, I can't believe they did that. Why would they do that to me? I'm finally over their bad behaviour or their mistreatment of me and stuff like that. Like, bro.
Yeah, he's got 300 hours of community service, John. His lawyer, I think you mentioned it before, his lawyer's planning to appeal.
Yeah, they've submitted the appeal, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, so, John, once he does his time, he's only a young man, he's only 21. So once he does his time, I don't have a problem with him coming back. Too. But he's got to learn his lesson from this. Don't go attacking people with a hammer, mate.
You do your time and then realise that what you have done is wrong, then I'm happy for you to continue. Once you've been found guilty, as I always say, it's like innocent till proven guilty. Do your time, realise that what you did is wrong, come back, be awesome. But,
his junior club, the Western Suburbs Red Devils, have reached out about the potential of him playing in the Illawarra Rugby League competition. But, I mean, I don't know if that's going to go ahead, John. They got to make an official submission to the New South Wales Rugby League, and the NRL would have to give the all clear for that.
The NRL has to approve, and why would they? That's like when we were talking about was it Bronson Cherry coming back, and he tried to go play Oztag in the park, and his lawyer told him don't play Oztag in the park. Like it's the same kind of thing. He shouldn't be allowed to go play. Jake Friend went and played for the Atherton, or was it Todd Carney who went and played for the Atherton Roosters?
Might have been Carney off the top of my head. Yeah, don't have it in front of me, but.
Todd Carney obviously wasn't anywhere near as bad. He did a lot of bad stuff, a lot of bad stuff.
I think we're probably thinking about one thing in particular here, John. That incident in the pub.
Yeah, exactly.
We won't go too.
But he didn't chase anyone off a roof with a hammer.
No, I mean of the two offences. There's one that's harmless and one that is harmful.
Exactly. Yeah. And Todd Carney he's been on a few podcasts now. He's trying to not make a comeback into playing, but make a comeback into rugby league. He's I think he said he's been sober for a couple of years and stuff like that, which has always been good. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. He's come back, realised what he did was wrong, and now he's looking for a way back in, and we should forgive what he did being wrong. The only thing that Todd Carney ever really did was put the game into the ultimate disrepute.
I think he got banned from Goulburn at one point.
Yeah, for jumping on cars or something weird like that.
But I mean, Amon has been doing those training sessions with that sprint coach Roger Fabry as well, John. So it's good that he's making good use of his spare time at the moment. But, he is a talented young playmaker, John, and there's a shortage of playmakers. So once he does his time, he's probably going to come into calculations for a number of NRL clubs. Definitely. When he was 14, when he was playing for the Western Suburbs Devils, he earned a $20,000 prize from the Footy Show for scoring a try that was deemed the best in junior footy during the 2014 season. So it feels like since then he's sort of been this star on the rise, John, and it's all come crashing down with this senseless hammer attack.
Dragons were going to build a team around him, and then they couldn't. Yeah, so I'm sure this will continue to be a story, especially if his appeal is successful. On to more Australia Day nonsense from sporting organisations. God.
So, John, this was the most bizarre statement released by the NRL on Australia Day. It was 2 lines and 2 lines only. This was what the NRL said. The NRL acknowledges that today represents a painful and sorrowful day for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, the NRL said in a statement. Today we pay tribute to the resilience and the enormous contribution our Aboriginal and Torres Strait brothers and sisters make to our nation and the greatest game for all. So, John, those were the only 2 lines of the NRL statement. There was no mention of, that some people may want to celebrate Australia Day. None whatsoever. Just those 2 lines saying that Indigenous Australians were in their thoughts. Now, John, that's the sort of statement that if that was released by, say, an Indigenous body, I would go, okay, fair enough. But that was released by the NRL, John. No acknowledgement that maybe some other people would want to celebrate Australia Day. To me, this is just a real misread of the situation by the NRL, John.
Well, the NRL does have a massive amount of Indigenous players.
They do.
And does a lot for Close the Gap, Indigenous Round and all that kind of thing. My preference personally would be them to just not release anything.
But, I mean, if they were going to release a statement, they could have said that as well as some other things like, for some people this is a day of celebration, but they just completely ignore that. But, you sort of go, look, why are the NRL and the AFL getting involved in this? There's a lot of heat on the Australian Open Tennis and Cricket Australia because Australia Day falls in the tennis summer and the cricket summer. But why are the winter codes getting involved in this at all, John? Like you say, they could just ignore it and not release any statement.
That's it. They could just do nothing because they're not on.
No.
Look, the news that we have around the NRL is things like Junior Moan, Jack White and Michael Maguire, players, movements, things like that. And then we also have the NRL just chucking their hat in the ring about Australia Day. Just say nothing. Like, just say nothing. You could also, as you said, put like, we acknowledge today is Australia Day. Happy Australia Day. We also acknowledge this.
Either say nothing or say more than just that.
Yeah.
That they've not gone into enough detail. But just don't. It's a winter code. It's not on.
Organisations have started virtue signalling just like the social justice warriors. As I understand, there's a lot of Indigenous players, and there's Latrell Mitchell, who makes it be known everything about everything is all about him.
Yeah, so he weighed in, John. He said on Instagram, thinking of my people today, there's a reason the windscreen is bigger than the rearview mirror. Keep looking forward. He's always got a way in, John. He can't ever leave anything alone.
But they should just say nothing. I'm fine with Latrell Mitchell issuing a statement, to be honest, because that guy, he has skin in the game, But the NRL doesn't have any skin in the game. As you said, they're closed now. They should be all on holidays and just not doing stories.
Yeah. So this comes on the back of, as we've talked about what Pat Cummins has said on the matter, John. So Port Adelaide of the AFL, they've also declared that the date should be changed. I saw their massive statement and blah, blah, blah. At least, the South Sydney Rabbitohs released a statement. We know they've got a heavy Indigenous following.
Well, they've got
a
Latrell
number
Mitchell.
Of Indigenous players, yes, including...
and Latrell Mitchell.
But at least the Rabbitohs said, at the Rabbitohs, this was their statement, at the Rabbitohs, we understand that today is a day Australians pause to reflect upon and celebrate the unique qualities of our nation. For many, though, it is also a painful and difficult day. They say a couple of other things, John. But yeah, at least they've acknowledged both sides of the equation, John, unlike the NRL, who made no acknowledgement that some people would want to celebrate Australia Day.
My Australia Day was awesome. We had open mats at like 9:15 in the morning, where I went and did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and rolled around on the floor with men, got really, really sweaty in the really, really hot heat. Did some wrestling, then went and had barbecue burgers at home with my family and... enjoyed the day off. I didn't need to hear a statement from any sporting organisations telling me their thoughts or feelings on this Australia Day. All I needed was to have that day off. And honestly, you can all have your arguments. I just want the day off and want to not have to be forced into the thing, like have it shoved in my face by the NRL.
I don't think any sport should get involved in it. But if the Australian Open and Cricket Australia are going to get involved, you go, well, their sports are running at the time.
They actually have things on that day.
For the NRL and AFL to get involved, like, seriously, in January? Give me a break, John.
It's just organisations virtue signalling as social justice warriors because they get clout by doing it to me. Like, that's all it seems like to me. And, I hate social justice warriors. So... onwards and upwards. Australia Day is over for another year, and we'll talk about it again next year when the NRL releases another silly statement. Yeah. Andrew Webster's given us the Tigers. Tigers are always in the news, no matter what.
John, I could not work this out, and I like Andrew Webster as a journalist. He's one of the better journalists in the NRL, John. But this story it was just so strange to me, John. I had to, when I looked at it, I thought, well, I got to put this on the rundown. So the headline of I got paywalled out of the story, John, but the headline of the story was, while the West Tigers were chopping Nofaluma, a surgeon was chopping off the CEO's toe. The abstract was, interim Tigers boss Shane Richardson had a toe amputated amid Zoom calls about what to do with the unwanted winger. Who cares, John? Look, I wish Shane Richardson well with his toe, John. I hope his toe is okay. But I don't think we need to have a story about Shane Richardson's toe amid, what the West Tigers are doing with David Nofaluma, John. This was a real who cares story to me, and I don't know why Andrew Webster would be writing it.
Well, because... They need to include the Tigers in the news. I don't know what it is about the Tigers, man. They are always in the news, and they find any way they can to put not the Tigers. I don't think the Tigers do it. I think the media finds any way to do it. But maybe it does come back to what you were saying before. West Tigers people comment a lot on our thing. They're so overly... So
maybe the Herald have gone, well, we
need a West Tigers story.
Find
anything. Seriously, because we've got to get readers.
This is really, to me, that's really scraping the barrel. The CEO having a toe removed. Who cares about that, John?
Well,
that's so bizarre to me.
Next, we'll start seeing the West Tigers accounts clerk has had COVID-19 scare. In the midst of Benji Marshall organising the team, the accounts clerk's got COVID-19. Yeah, that's it for NRL, and let's not dwell on the stupidity of Andrew Webster. And he's a great journalist. Don't get me wrong, but
he's a great journalist. But there's just times where I remember last year, John, when the whole Latrell Mitchell issue blew up, and I remember when Michael Chammas, who's a very good reporter as well, John, he asked him. I think it was on the Sunday Footy Show. Chammas said, look, are you going to... This was when nobody was holding Latrell Mitchell accountable, and Latrell Mitchell could get away with whatever he wanted to get away with. And Chammas asked Webster straight out, look, are you going to hold Latrell Mitchell accountable for this? And Andrew Webster said, it's not my job to hold him accountable. I thought, what? That's exactly right, your job. That's precisely your job, is to hold him accountable. You're a journalist, mate. And this is another strange offering by Andrew Webster, John. So I like him as a reporter. But occasionally he comes out with these very strange offerings, John, and I just don't get it some of the time with him.
Yeah.
Very good reporter, though.
Yeah, definitely. We got nothing in the AFL.
No.
Strangely.
Just so much going on with the tennis and cricket, John.
Nothing in combat sports. Still waiting for the main event for the UFC 300 in April. And in other sports...
Yeah, it is rugby league, but it's sort of our other news, John.
Matt Burton has appeared on... What podcast was it? I watched these clips.
So it was the Let's Trot show hosted by Josh Adokar and Josh Mansell.
That's right. Yeah. So it's funny because how our internet algorithms work, right? So whatever I watch on, say, TikTok, will then start being fed exactly just constant things about this. And I watched one video on TikTok that was like, ways to prove the Earth is flat to people who don't believe the truth or something. And it was just like this, 2-minute video of ways to prove it. And then 2 videos later, I get Matt Burton. I'm like, is that Matt Burton? Oh, it's a rugby league related video. Oh, God, no, I've just screwed my algorithm. Now I'm stuck on flat Earth theories on TikTok. And it's true. I've just been getting heaps of flat Earth stuff now. So,
thanks, Matt Burton.
Yeah.
So the producer apparently left Burton the following question to read out and ponder on. He said, and the question was, Burton read it out. Do you believe in that the world is flat? Burton read. If no, some people do. What would you say to them? Burton then took the discussion in a direction that not many people would have seen coming, John. He said, it's a tough one, eh? Do you believe the world is flat? I don't know, eh? Yeah, I believe it is.
Yeah, I love Mansell's response.
And then Mansell said, no, you don't.
Yeah,
and then Burton said, yeah, I do.
He's fully in disbelief, like, nah, you don't, man.
You believe the world is flat? Mansell asked again. Burton said, yeah, well, like it's round, but it's obviously flat because if it was, I don't know. I actually don't know. And then Burton later said, yeah, I don't get it. But yeah, no, it's a mad question. I don't know. When I look at it, it's obviously round, but then I sort of do believe that it's flat in some way.
Man, Mansell's reaction is so funny. Like, it's like, I can't tell if he's joking or not, and God, I hope he's joking. Oh, he's one of these. Flat Earthers are the strangest people in the universe. Seriously. They are the absolute strangest people in the universe. One of my friends posted once that like the best television show they could possibly make would be to put 5 flat earthers on a boat and tell them to, like a reality show, prove the Earth is flat. Just film them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's that guy that like forked out like 20 grand to try and prove the Earth was flat and inadvertently proved it's a curve.
That's an expensive way to find out that the world's round.
It's so bizarre. And yeah, Mansell's reaction is hilarious. And yeah, so now that I watched all these ways to prove that the Earth is flat to people who don't have any idea, and then watched what I thought was a rugby league video, my TikTok is just all flat Earth stuff now. And It's super frustrating because now once you watch 2 videos on the flat Earth, that's what you get hit with, all flat Earth, and it's just bizarre. Honestly, there's like flat Earth, and on the other side of it, there's some people think there's dinosaurs walking around there, and the latest one of the flat Earth, I think they're called cookers. They call them cookers for some reason. NASA actually has the last dinosaur in captivity, and some guy saw it. They also believe there's giants, and it just keeps getting weirder and weirder and weirder. Seriously.
So Matt Burton sent everybody down a rabbit hole here, John.
Yeah, you've ruined our life, Matt Burton. You've ruined our algorithm. Please fix it.
Yeah. Please focus on your football this year, Matt Burton,
not
whether the Earth's flat or round.
Oh, God. So that's it for other news. Thanks, Matt Burton, for ruining John's TikTok. On out to our social media blower-uppers. So, of course, the overrated player video gets a lot of things.
It seems to, John.
But Simon Evans, hi Simon Evans, he said, LOL, the list goes on for overpaid players. Some clubs have no idea. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think, we discussed Manly even today. They don't manage their salary cap very well. I would say they have some overpaid players. Oh, but people got to remember, overpaid is different to overrated. Because clubs will pay... I think somebody once said, no player's going to turn down the money, which is true. No player's going to turn down the money. Clubs will pay what they think is right, and players will take what they think they deserve. But that's different to overrated, because some of the players, one of the contributing factors to overrated is can be pay. But some players will be paid the correct amount, but then everyone in the media and everyone on all the things will really overly rate them. I think Braithen Astor was one that got overrated players 1,000 times.
He got that Rugby League Week most overrated player gong a lot of times. Brad Fittler did as well.
But at no point, I don't think Braithen Astor was ever overpaid. I think he was just I really like Braithen Astor. I thought he was a great player.
Yeah, look, I'll be honest, John. I'm going to disagree. I think he was. I think at times he was overpaid, and I think he was overrated. I think a lot of the time Brent Sherwin didn't get the credit he deserved, and Anasta took a lot of his credit. But I get what you're saying. Well, yeah. Just as a Bulldogs fan, I felt like Anasta got too many raps that Brent Sherwin should have gotten.
Yeah, I think when they let Braithen Astor go over Brent Sherwin, a lot of people saw it as a mistake. And I didn't think at the time it was a mistake. I thought Brent Sherwin was better.
I didn't think it was a mistake at all. What was a huge mistake was keeping Braithen Astor and letting Jonathan Thurston go. That was a monumental mistake.
They made a bunch of it, and then the other one was signing Brent Sherwin to such a long deal that only lasted 2 years or whatever it was. Remember they signed him?
And then he left and went to England early.
Yeah.
He didn't play in 2008, and that was a lot of the reason why they won the Spoon in 2008, and also because Sonny Will... dogged it and got on a plane to France without telling anyone.
So Marcel Clark on the same videos. Guys, I'm just an old lady who has only barracked for one team in my life, but I remember the days when players had day jobs, trained after work, played on weekends, and fronted for work, battered and bruised Monday. I know it's a different era, but there wasn't as much whinging as there is now. I guess I'm too old school. Yeah, I like those days too. I think I told you before, I once had the Illawarra Steelers working on a house next door to mine.
Thanks for the comment, Marcel. That's a good point, John.
A lot of the players need to go out and get jobs so they can stop. They really do.
It will give them perspective, John. They go out and work a real job for a few months. They realise how lucky they are, and they're a lot less inclined to commit acts of stupidity to bring it all undone.
And then complain so much.
Yeah.
So this is the thing. So Thomas Dipper and Mick Finley are having a massive ongoing conversation. Other people chiming in every now and then, all right? So Mick Finley we talked about last week. He was the one that brought up that DC isn't that good and so on. And then Thomas Dipper, who's clearly a Manly supporter, replied and said, who cares if you have or have not, referring to them making the finals. DC makes your team so much better than they are. He carries you most of the time because Tommy must be a lazy trainer with all the injuries he has. DCE makes Turbo's game much easier. Look at DCE in Origin. It's because he has better players. A few years ago, when you're at the bottom of the table, if DCE didn't play, you'd think you'd be better. Question mark. You clearly have no idea about football if you think DCE doesn't make Manly a better team. If Manly didn't have DCE, you'd have a couple of seasons of wooden spoons in those years.
I think that's all fine, Job. I don't like how he says to this other... Sorry, it's Thomas and...
so this is Thomas Dipper's...
Mick and Thomas who are having a back and forth.
So this is Thomas Dipper responding to Mick Finlay, and that's been going on now for...
Look, there's nothing wrong with that other than you clearly have no idea about football. Like, come on, you don't need to put that in. Like, argue the issue, that's fine. The rest of that comment's fine, but don't go saying, you have no idea about football. That's not respectful.
Yeah, and so this is the thing. It goes on. They keep going. That's what I said. I'm not going to read all of their comments because it goes on for a while. They're pretty civil. It's pretty good. It's not like some of the other guys that we have to... social media manager has to hide. But the you don't have any idea about insert subject here is such a stupid argument. It's to me, it's...
argue the issue.
Yeah.
Don't get personal.
When... In seriously, modern society, it happens a lot on these things. It'll be like you have to read the data. There's this Joe Rogan podcast where they have like a pro-legalization of marijuana doctor and an anti-legalization of marijuana journalist having a debate, and Joe Rogan is moderating for them. It's actually a pretty good podcast. But one thing they constantly say to each other is, you have to read the data. You have to do your research, and that's the same kind of nonsense as, you have no idea about what you're talking about. Because what you're saying is, actually, I have read or I have analysed something different to you that you clearly haven't seen or analysed. And if you did, then you would agree with me. But that's not right, because you both have access to the same stuff. You both watch the same games. Look, I think DCE makes Manly better. I don't think DCE is overrated. I think, you're right. If DCE wasn't there, Manly would have the spoon. We may have had a couple of wooden spoons in that time, because when Tom Trbojevic goes down, Manly struggles to avoid losing. And it's DCE that keeps him out of the bottom.
And that's the point. Like we think that... I certainly think that Jake Trbojevic is only being paid that very high salary to keep Tom happy. I think, again, off the top of my head, I think it's $900,000 or $950,000 a year that Jake Trbojevic is on.
Or reported. Remember, you don't know.
Sorry, reported. And so if we think that Jake should really only be paid about $600,000, which is what I think, then that's an extra $300,000 or $350,000 that you basically got to add to Tom's already huge salary, which I believe is somewhere in the realm of $1.1, $1.2 million a year, John. So if you add that 300, you're looking at about $1.5 million. And so if that essentially $1.5 million player is not on the field, well, that's going to put a lot of pressure on DCE, and that's going to take a lot of it's going to be out of his control.
Yeah, exactly.
He doesn't have his sidekick with him,
and they also didn't have an established proper 5/8 for last year, but they managed to. They stayed in the middle, like 12th, and I think that was on the back of a lot of DCE. You got to remember DCE's also got to go play Origin, and so on and so forth. So.
There's a number of players who are overrated in the NRL. I don't think.
Yeah, I'll never accept DCEs. Peggy Wilson on the most overrated player. When it comes to talking rugby league, everyone's an expert except those who are. Well, not entirely true. Some former top grade players are great players are media commentators and presenters, but a lot of the media coverage features those who aren't. Like most fans of the game, they have their opinion and likes and dislikes of team players, but have limited or no practical experience of actually playing at top level. I don't know how, practical experience is the other stupid one, do your research.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure what her point is. It's a bit of a
I don't really know.
A confusing comment, that one, John.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'll tell you now. Wayne Bennett, who is arguably the greatest coach in the history of rugby league, never played club football at the top level.
It's like we said before, John. People who've never played a first grade game could make an opinion on the game that's accurate.
Yep.
People who have played 300 NRL games could have an opinion that is not accurate.
Yep.
So your opinion of what you say is either accurate or it's not, regardless of the number of first grade games you've played.
Being a superstar in anything doesn't make you necessarily good at analysing it nor teaching it. People really need to understand that. Just because you're super, super good at something, especially in sport, doesn't mean that you even sometimes know what you're doing. Like, there's a lot of instincts that kick in. And you can see it in some superstar players that go on to coach that fail miserably. And some Wayne Bennett style.
Look at Trent Barrett. It hasn't worked for him as a first-grade
Some
coach.
players who were not superstars like Wayne Bennett, who he played at the top level at the time, like in Queensland.
Yeah, well, Craig Bellamy was never a superstar player.
Phil Gould was never a superstar. What is it? Is okay back rower who could also kick goals is what Phil Gould calls himself.
Ricky Stewart was a superstar player, and he's the most overrated coach in the game.
Exactly. You can go through all of them. But then there's the flip side as well. You have guys like Steve Price, who played like 2 games for the West Tigers, who also wasn't a good coach.
Yeah.
And so it's playing experience actually has nothing to do with analysis. In combat sports is a beautiful example of it. The greatest no-gi grappler of all time, Gordon Ryan, is coached by John Danaher, who has never competed in grappling, because his body is so broken from injuries that he had when he was young. Literally never done a single competition. He can't even now in his aged time, I think he's like 42 years old or something, but he can't even do training with resistance. He can only do like drilling because his knees are broken and stuff like that. John Jones, who is the greatest MMA fighter of all time, used to be coached by Jackson Wink. Neither of those guys ever had a professional fight. The 2 guys who he's coached, Mike Jackson, never had a professional fight. Maybe some amateur fights, but not a professional fight. But he created the greatest MMA fighter of all time, It's irrelevant. And the people who try to use it as an argument, they're just not clever, actually. You're just not clever, to be honest.
Absolutely.
So, Northbound in the South Lane, I love the name, by the way, on a short on TikTok about the Dolphins TV schedule. It didn't actually mention the Dolphins in the short. Got to make sure they put it in the thing. Said, who is this about? So, it's about Dolphins, bro. TikTok watcher, not poster, also a great name, on Melbourne doing well in retirement games, which we talked about on Melbourne. When was it? I can't remember. Billy's retirement game went well, would have been held to 0 apart from an intercept.
Yeah, okay. In response to that, I would say, well, Cameron Smith won a premiership in 2020 in his last game, and Cooper Cronk won a premiership in 2017, which was his last game for Melbourne before he went to the Roosters. So that's what I would say in response to TikTok watcher, not poster, who's had a go at us.
There's always exceptions,
all right,
man.
Okay, Billy Slater lost a grand final in his last game. Okay, but Smith and Cronk won a premiership in their last games for the
for their other premierships, Melbourne Storm's other non-premierships, they also had retiring players that they sent out in style too. The Billy Slater one is the exception. I think Michael Crocker was one of the retiring ones in one of their premierships. I'm pretty sure, just vaguely. You can quote me on it and say I'm wrong and shout at me on thing, because Michael Crocker had that whole thing where they didn't lose when he played, he won 38 games in a row and he was their spiritual leader. And I'm pretty sure on his retirement game, I could look it up, but I can't be bothered. I want to get abused on the internet.
Yeah, look, there's others, John, that I think, but I don't want to say because I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. But that's the big 3 we've been through. 2 of the big 3 won premierships in their last game for the Melbourne Storm. Yeah. So I still think what we were talking about was valid, even though this TikTok...
That's the outlier. Outlier doesn't prove the rule. Yeah. So Melbourne... Who won the premiership in 2008?
Manly.
Michael Crocker got beat. He went to South Sydney.
He won it the year before, though, but it was taken off.
Yeah. So then the General, the legend. Yes. I fully feel like the General, just correct me if I'm wrong, you can respond, watches and comments as we're going, because he's done a couple of comments on episode 43.
Good on the General, John. He's always respectful in his comments.
Fatty is underrated as a commentator. His commentator in the 03 grand final just adds to how special that grand final is to me. Go watch the Sattler tackle replay back. He takes the reins. It's great analysis, as well as him saying this has been one of the great grand finals. And when they won it, when Scott Sattler made that tackle, goosebump stuff, great situational awareness. It was him It was him first to pick up and mention it was a flick pass from Benji in the 05 grand final.
Yeah, Fatty's a great commentator. He calls it as he sees it. He's not afraid to give a strong opinion. I think as Fatty's got a bit older, he's become a bit more fearless in his commentary. I think Fatty's probably now in his 60s, I would have thought.
Yeah, as you get older, you care less.
Yeah, so I think maybe 25 years ago, he was probably a bit more scared to give a strong opinion. But now that Fatty's in his 60s, he just doesn't care now, John, and he just lets fly, and it makes for great commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. And the general again, I don't think DC is overrated. Couldn't agree more, brother. I think he's playing some of his best club football now in his mid-30s. I do think he held the club ransom through, though, in 2013. Got $1.3 million out of them on that lengthy deal, and a big reason why they haven't featured in a grand final since. For Oz, I think he's been very ordinary at times. I think back to that Tonga loss, he effectively did nothing. We should have never lost to that team on paper. As for his wins for Queensland, can't knock it. He keeps it simplistic as a halfback, goes about his job, but I think a big part of it is New South Wales not being able to win the tight games since mid-2000s. Cleary is also the number one choice halfback for Australia, played 7 in the World Cup final, was out with the PCL. As for DC's one and only competition, I think he means Premiership. Manly 2011 was the softest comp one in the NRL era. Manly didn't even have to play a grand final to win it, smacking the Cowboys 42-8 in the qualifying final when it was 2-7, then defeated a hook-coached Lockyer-less Broncos in the prelim and then beat the Warriors in the grand final, who we all know doesn't count. Harsh on the Warriors, bro.
and harsh on Manly too, John, I think. Look, I love the General, John. I think the General gives us great feedback. Most of the time, but I think it's very harsh on Manly to say that premiership just doesn't count. No team wins a premiership by accident, John. You got to do the hard work. So I don't think you can take Manly's premiership away from them. Certainly not.
Yeah. Well, Cleary is the number one choice for halfback for Australia. Yes, but what I keep saying is, you put DCE in there and. There's no. You
don't lose anything.
Yeah, you don't lose anything. You still have this, and yes, he has featured in 2 of the worst losses in Australia recent time. I would say, let's be honest, John. If Cleary and DCE are fully fit, you're picking Cleary. Yeah,
he's won the last 3 premierships in a row. And even though Queensland more often than not get the better of New South Wales in state of origin, I'm picking Cleary over DC if they're both fit. But yes, as we've said, you've got 2 very capable options, obviously, at halfback there, even though DCE's had a couple of slip-ups in the green and gold and lost games that he should have won there, John.
And as a Dragons fan, I completely agree that beating a hook-coached Lockyer-less Broncos in the prelim doesn't count, because a hook-coached anything less Bronco team is... Look at the Dragons. Riley, hi, Riley. I love the way you respond, thumbs up emoji every time. Rodders now on the Bulldog group. This is
one that I've just added in, a new one, John, and I will respond in detail once you read it out.
Guys, Burton will not be playing centre. He'll be 6 with Sexton. Sutton just had an operation, out for 8 weeks. Critter will be playing centre as he'll need to help the team with the defensive systems put in place. Taff will start at fullback. First time I've listened to this potty, could be the last with no thought or proper homework done. Sorry.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a detailed response.
2 thumbs up, bro.
John, because this comment is completely wrong on every level, and I'm going to tell you why now. So I don't know why this commenter, Rodders now, is so adamant that Burton shouldn't play in the centres and should stay at 5'8". He's got a really good record in the centres. As I said, he's played 2 games for the Blues in the centres in 2022, so he's a state of origin centre. Scored a try in Penrith's 2021 grand final win over South in the centres. At 5'8" in 2 seasons for the Bulldogs, they finished 12th in 2022 and 15th in 2023. So how you could be so adamant that this player who's got a really good record in the centres at rep level and in grand finals, John, should be playing at 5'8" when his record at 5'8" for the club is not good, John.
No.
How you could be so adamant that he should be at 5'8", I don't understand that, John, especially now that they've got Drew Hutchison as another option in the halves, John. Now, look, I understand. Look, I named Burton in the centres in my team, John. I understand if people disagree with that. Burton may very well be in the halves in round 1, John, and I get that. I understand that. But you can see why, as everything I've just detailed, you can see why Burton is certainly an option at centre, John, even if he doesn't play in the centres.
Everyone has Burton in the centres, to be honest.
Yeah, well, there you go. So I had him in the centres, John. But you can see why I did, even if he doesn't play in the centres. Further to that, he says Sutton being out for 8 weeks, right? So, John, that's only come out in the last day or so. Our preview went up on January 19. I'm sorry, but we can't see into the future on these matters. And, John, I didn't even have Sutton in my team anyway. So I don't know why this person's having a go at us about that. I didn't have him in the team at all. And even though, John, he's out for 8 weeks, he's going to be back. It's January. The season starts in early March. He's not going to miss too many games, John. So he'll come into calculations. So I don't know why this person's having a go at us about that. He's having surgery on his knee, John, Sutton.
Yep.
So, and that's the thing. With Sutton, we said, look, he could potentially... I had Taff on the bench. But we said, look, Sutton could be a candidate to come in instead of Taff. But it's a long season, John. He's getting into us about Sutton being out for 8 weeks. I don't... And we've still got 4 or 5 weeks until the season starts. He's not going to miss much footy. And then he sounds so sure about, Crichton's going to play in the centres, John. He says, what did he say there? Crichton's going to be in the centres because he's going to... for the sake of our defence. I mean, Billy Slater used to direct Melbourne's defence from fullback. I would have thought fullback's a better position to oversee the defensive structure of the front line.
One of the fullback's jobs.
So anyway, John, I don't think I could have gone into any more detail picking that comment apart.
Yep.
He's so adamant Taff will start at fullback. Crichton's their big money recruit. They want to get maximum value out of their big money recruit. That's why I named Crichton at fullback. And look, that was my team, John. I'm not saying it's the perfect team. I'm not saying that's going to be the team. I'm saying that that's my team.
That team is, honestly, guys, it's just our opinion, but that team is actually the team that most people have played.
And I did put it at the bottom of your notes there on our rundown, John, in case we need to reference it.
Canterbury themselves, the club... I don't know, what's your name? Rodders now
talks as if he's the coach or something.
Yeah, well, the Canterbury coaching staff are quoted as saying that Burton might be moved to the centres. They did say we still have 3 months before it becomes clearer. Matt has such a great attitude. They're considering a switch to the centres for Burton.
Yeah, well, there you go.
A lot of fans have him at centre with Crichton at fullback, with Taff missing out. So maybe you should do your homework. It's the internet, so there's dates available. You can see that you can
see that our preview went up on the 19th of January, and this news about Sutton's only come out in the last day or two, and it's now the 29th of January.
So onwards.
So I was just gonna and this first time I've listened could be the last. Yeah, lose the attitude, mate. We don't need you listening if you're going to provide that sort of ridiculous feedback.
Who cares? Just do your research, mate. I don't care if you don't listen. It's fine. Don't listen. But at least you listened and commented.
Yeah, took the time out of his day, John.
Bulldogs Elite, on the other hand, said, "Nice work, boys. Thanks, Bulldogs Elite.
You.
I think we can't afford to move Burton when we have Critter and Taff as centres and fullback options, especially as you pointed out our lack of creative halves. Prop's a huge issue, and if it backfires this year, then yes, I agree, Gus should be under fire."
See, that's an example of constructive feedback. John, disagreeing, respectfully disagreeing, but we appreciate the feedback from Bulldogs Elite. That's a good comment.
And again, this is actually the big discussion around the Bulldogs right now is who should play half centre and fullback. Everybody is wondering. Yeah,
yes,
everybody's wondering.
It's up for debate.
Crap tons of pitmen. Comment last week were going on about how Burton should be moved. He should be definitely moved to the centres because he was the centre of the year in 2021 or whatever. Thanks, Bulldogs Elite.
Yeah.
I still, keep mentioning it to everyone. Prop is the biggest issue the Bulldogs have right now. Their halves aren't the most creative, but with some solid halves and a creative fullback like Crichton, you can, and a creative dummy half, you can make up for that. But their engine room is going to be a massive issue for them if those young guys can't fire. Mr. It's Me 9901 on the Bulldogs preview. Carraz to play right centre and Wilson on the wing. That's out of left field.
Okay, I think I had Carraz on the wing and Connor Tracy and Burton as my centres. But that's all right, John. That's a respectful disagreement. There's no problem with that.
Yeah. Paulie Walnuts. Hey, Paulie Walnuts from The Sopranos. There's zero chance Burton plays centre. He's played maybe 30-odd games there his entire life at centre, but he's played hundreds at 6. He'll be better this year. Burton at 6 isn't why we struggled last year. He just needs a 7. It frees him up. Critter will probably be centre with Taff at 1, but Critter could be 1. That's probably the most up for grabs spot. Who partners Burton at 7 is more 50-50 than Burton playing 6. That's locked in. Teams being built around Burton, so it will be Hutcho or Sexton at 7 partnering Burton. Sexy is shorter odds. I love the nickname. Sexy.
Yeah. I'll just say to that, John, yeah, he says he's played less games at centre, but as I've said, his record at centre is good, John. State of origin centre. A centre who scored a grand final try in the position. And you look, and yes, more games at 5/8, but look at how the team's gone with him at 5/8, John. As I said, 12th in 2022, 15th in 2023. So just because you played more games in one position than the other doesn't mean you're better in that position. And, you know, the rest of it, that's fair enough. Look, that's a respectful comment, but I'd just say that in response to it, he's entitled to disagree. That's fine.
Yeah, because you got to remember when you use that stat, like he's played more games at a certain position. Darren Lockyer had at one point played more games at fullback than 5/8. You know, and what is Darren Lockyer actually remembered as? A guy who moved from fullback to being one of the greatest 5/8s ever. Burton, he play? No, he played New South Wales 2022 at centre.
Yes.
And I think for Australia at centre in 2022 as well.
I think he has played. Do you want to look that up and double check that, John? If Burton's played for Australia, I think he has. But we might just.
He played Prime Minister 13. And he played in the World Cup.
Here on his Wikipedia?
Yeah, he played in the World Cup.
If you just scroll up, we can look at how many games he's played.
Yeah, he's played 2 games for Australia.
He's played for Australia, yes.
But did he play centre for Australia?
I'd say he would have, John. I don't think he would have been in the halves for Australia.
Yeah, it's partnered with Addo-Carr.
In the centre?
Well, so I think Addo-Carr was on his wing.
Yeah, I'd say centre-wing combination, Addo-Carr and...
and then set up a try, scored a try on debut and executed a one-on-one steal with the game well and truly iced. Addo-Carr and Burton pulled off a party trick for the ages, with BBC Sport labelling him as the Kangaroo Globetrotters.
Okay, so he's had state of origin and Australian experience in the centres. And he scored a grand final try in the centres, and you said set up a try for Australia.
Yep, the play is considered one of the best tries in Kangaroos history, according to Mal Meninga. He didn't play in the final. But yeah, and he's won like Centre of the Year, or he won Centre of the Year 2000.
And I remember when he was at Penrith, John, he scored an extremely good try in the centres, just sidestepping through the team he was playing against. Hard to remember which team it was, John.
Yeah, there it is. In 2021, Centre of the Year.
Yeah.
Look, like I keep saying, that is the most up to debate positions, the fullback, centre, 5/8 in Bulldogs right now. Bulldogs fans should be happy they have that, unlike say the Dragons, who struggle to put together a spine.
Yeah, it's healthy. It's healthy.
Yeah, you should be happy.
You want to be having this sort of these sorts of discussions around positions at this stage.
So Tim Duncan 4541 on the Bulldogs preview. You could create 10 different Bulldogs side combination in 2024, such as the versatility of the new recruits. But in the end, you need to start with 17 from watching the 2 trials and general training. I see Blake Taff at fullback and Drew Hutchinson at halfback for round 1. I think this was the live comment you read out during the podcast.
Yeah, I think that was the one. That was too. Comment you read out. Yeah, I think
it was. That's right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, he was right at the time. Nobody responded to them. And then Jay, 2 on West Tigers preview.
I did this one in.
I thought Carousel was out because of a broken jaw for the other games. He played great from memory for the first game.
He was out with a broken jaw for the other games, but all we said was that he was not the incumbent. We never said why he was out of games 2 and 3. We never said he was dropped for games 2 and 3. We just said that he wasn't the incumbent, which he wasn't because he was out. It's true, he was out with a broken jaw for games 2 and 3. But yeah, just in response to that, all we said was he's not the incumbent.
And I did say that Damien Cook was a favoured. There were better favoured choice for Brad Fittler at all times. There were actually, if I remember, there were at the time better choices. Well, people in the world thought there were better choices at hooker for this Origin when he picked Damien Cook as well. So there was a lot of flack. I remember, I can't actually remember 100%, but I remember there was heaps of. Damien Cook came on and played centre for a while in the second game or something for State of Origin last year.
Yeah, and I think they copped some flack putting him out there.
Yeah, there was a whole bunch.
Copped a lot of flack.
There was a whole lot of weirdness around that, but the point was, yes, that Coruscant wasn't the incumbent. Doesn't matter why you miss out. If you miss out and another person is picked, that other person becomes the incumbent. That's what incumbent means. But yeah, Michael Maguire might name Joseph Suaalii at hooker. You never know.
Yeah.
So, and then just to finish up, housekeeping, she's got to give a shout out to Matilda. She fought on subversion and received one of the SmartB rash guards. I was at Jiu-Jitero's Sydney on Saturday and I saw her wearing the rash guard. Watch out for the Jiu-Jitero's Instagram to see a great reel that is coming from Matt from MM Inc. And make sure you follow Matilda, tilde.bjj on Instagram. She's 14 years old, something like that. She is amazing at jiu-jitsu. I watched her matches. She's dominating adults all around Australia. Sign up for... Oh, I forgot to check the corporate box competition winner this morning. Sorry about that. We'll get to it on Thursday. Sign up for SmartB for the tip of the day. I'm now up double my initial investment. Bet with your head, not over it. As I said, I'm betting on place wins, not win-wins, even though sometimes the tip of the day says to bet on win. I just bet on place anyway. And sign up to win 2 tickets to Subversion. Maybe Matilda will be on there again. SmartB Racing Update starts this Friday with Bryce and Lewis. Cool. And make sure to follow SmartB app on all social medias. And we'll see you on Thursday.
Thanks, John. Yeah, the tennis will disappear from our rundown.
Poor tennis. But at least we got some West Indies, Australia one-dayers.
Yes. Try and get interested in that, John.
Yeah, exactly. And bye, producer Pyle.
See ya.